no matter whether his arm gets raised, my arm gets raised, and then I'm going straight on a stretcher, straight into the back of an ambulance, and I'm going to the hospital. So I've come to terms that's how this night is going to end, baby.
What? Seriously? Can you imagine a fighter saying his after party will be in the ER or in the ambulance and will be with his opponent if he's conscious enough? Let's ask it again. Can you imagine that? With a mindset like that, who wouldn't be a fan of this outlaw, this out-and-out warrior, one-of-a-kind brawler who relishes brutality?
I love this shit. Let's go. Let's go.
One who never backs down from a challenge and steps up to give up a tough fight to anyone. And you either stand in front of him to have a barnburner or you get slept in there. But that's how this man is built.
He's a psychopath!
Bro.
He's a psycho...
Bro.
You know, his whole shit...
An athlete at the top of his game, he calls it as he sees it. He's a legit BMF in the truest form. A dude who's been laying it down in the UFC like no other. For those who don't know, let me present to you, ladies and gentlemen, the hangman himself, Dan Hooker, the man who's built his legacy on his brutal offense-first style and always bringing the heat. The type of fighter who could literally punch his way through a wall if he had to.
If someone's not ready to go to the lengths that I'm willing to go to, then they're going to have a hard night.
MMA fans, stick around as we're breaking down Hooker's journey, his crazy fight style, and why he's the real BMF. Let's go.
I'm going straight on a stretcher, straight into the back of an ambulance, and I'm going to the hospital. That's how this night is going to end, baby.
Who says stuff like that? Like, who willingly says they're going to end up in the ambulance? That's Hooker, though. That's his mentality. It's insane. And honestly, that's why we all love him.
He's a psychopath. Like the New Zealand psychopath. So yeah, his shit's fucked up. I don't know what it is.
His teammate at City Kickboxing, Israel Adesanya, said this about him.
The guy holds his leg, gets his leg. I think he had him in the ankle lock. And then Dan's sitting there, and you see homeboy like pulling.
Cranking. I thought it was done.
And then you see him do this. You see him do this. And Dan, I saw Dan just chilling there like...
just waiting.
Izzy loves his teammates, and who wouldn't if you've got crazy ones like the Hangman? Alright, let's rewind the tape. Dan Hooker has always been the fan favorite we know of him as today. This guy's been grinding for years. Born in Auckland, New Zealand, Dan's always had that warrior spirit. He wasn't exactly born into a fighting family, but there's something in his DNA that just screams combat. Maybe it's the Maori ancestry of his that's fueling his combat adventure. His love for martial arts started with kickboxing, and he had a seamless transition into MMA like a natural. He came up in the New Zealand scene, and let's just say dude had a chip on his shoulder from the start. Hooker wasn't the type to play it safe. Now he went straight into battle, throwing bombs, risking it all. It's like he was born to get into wars and just barely walk out alive, or not walk out at all, because this man straight up embraces the stretcher life. Now let's talk about what really separates Dan Hooker from the pack. We all know this guy's style. He's all gas, no brakes. He's an aggressive striker with a massive heart, and it shows every single time he steps in that cage. He's a pressure fighter, but not just any pressure fighter. He's a relentless one, throwing strikes from all angles, staying in your face, and never giving you a chance to breathe. If you're in there with him, you're either knocking him out or you're gonna get hit until you can't keep up. That's the risk Dan's willing to take as he lives by this quote, kill or get killed in there. The thing about Hooker is he doesn't shy away from the heat. Hell, he thrives in it. His ability to take punishment and keep coming forward is almost like he's immune to pain. I mean, we've seen him eat heavy shots from some of the best in the business, Dustin Poirier, Paul Felder, and he still finds a way to get up and fire back with more. It's almost like he's a real-life zombie, and yeah, you might land a couple of good punches on him, but trust me, you're gonna be feeling the same with as much ferocity when he hits back. Hooker's got some of the nastiest counter strikes in the UFC. Look at his knockouts of Gilbert Burns and others for a change. Durinho was already hurt, and Dan picked up the precise moment to finish him off. Absolute savage. Let's not forget how he pushed through 5 rounds of pure hell with Dustin Poirier.
Dustin Poirier, I'm gonna smash your face in. Meet me in New Zealand, 2020, and I'm gonna end you.
One of the most brutal fights in recent memory. Both of them are just throwing hands, neither backing down, trading punches like there's no tomorrow. Hooker took everything Poirier could dish out and still fought like a man possessed. It's this kind of heart, this warrior mindset, that makes fans gravitate towards him. He's known to go full throttle on the feet. When he lets his hands go, it's like a storm, wild, unpredictable, and straight up dangerous. Now, let's look at his journey in the UFC. Hooker's been in the game for a while now, making his debut back in 2014. After some mixed results in the featherweight division, he moved up to 155 pounds and got a good streak on his CV, but it wasn't until around 2019 that people really started to take notice of the Hangman. He racked up some big wins and suddenly he was on the fast track to the top of the lightweight division. Once considered a genuine title contender in the UFC's most competitive division, Hooker suffered a terrible run of fights leading up to losing 4 of his previous 5 bouts. Of course, like any fighter, Hooker had to face some adversity. A losing streak was thought to have derailed his career, while a stint in the lower weight classes was short-lived after his defeat to featherweight prospect Arnold Allen. But hey, that's the fight game, right? It's all highs and lows, and Hooker's been through it all. But one thing's for sure, every time he faces adversity, he comes right back up stronger than ever. A subsequent win over contenders like Matthews Gamrot and Jalen Turner has put a far more positive spin on where he stands up against the world's best. And let's talk about his war with Paul Felder for a sec, one of the greatest, most brutal fights in UFC history. These two were in it for 25 minutes straight, just going for it, leaving it all in the cage. In the end, Hooker got the win, but you couldn't call it a victory without giving props to Felder too.
Congratulations to Dan. I mean, I knew this is exactly what I was in for when I came up here to New Zealand. I pissed this guy off, you know, and when you piss off a talented guy like Dan, he's going to bring it to you.
That fight was just pure heart and soul, and that's exactly what Hooker brings every single time. From his stunning knockouts of James Vick and Gilbert Burns, to his epic battles with Paul Felder and Dustin Poirier, Hooker has already proved that he was more than just a hype train. He's a true perennial contender. Alright, so what's next for the Hangman?
I got my eye on someone. I want the battle of the highlight reel. I want Justin Gaethje next. Let's go.
Dan was supposed to fight Justin Gaethje on the UFC 313 card, but he had to withdraw from the bout due to a hand injury. Now, since he's out of the fight, the UFC is scrambling to give a replacement to Gaethje, which they found in the form of a tough Rafael Fiziev. Fiziev is no slouch, and we're sure he'll bring the same heat that Hooker's known for, but let's be honest, this matchup of Gaethje and Hooker was violence personified. Glorious violence at its best. Maybe the MMA gods were unhappy with something that they had to intervene here. If we leave this recent blip, Dan's got plenty of fight left in him at 35 years old. He's still in his prime, and with the lightweight division as stacked as it is, there's no telling what kind of wild wars he's got left ahead of him. Whether it's climbing back into title contention or just staying in the mix with the top dogs, you can bet Hooker won't be slowing down anytime soon. He's got the heart, the drive, and the skill for one more run for the title, and you know the fans are going to be behind him every step of the way. With fighters like Hooker who prefer to go out on their shield, it's difficult to think what might be next for him, but whatever happens, the Hangman will give us some of the best fights in the game. So there you have it, Dan Hooker, the BMF in its purest form. The guy who'll never back down, always bring the fight, and take us on a ride every time he steps into the cage. Everybody wants to see what's next for him, because when Hooker fights, you're in for a show. Don't forget to hit that like button if you're rocking with the Hangman, and drop a comment with who you think he should face next. For more MMA stories like this one, check out our channel, and I'll catch you in the next one. Before you go, take a look at the video on your left, where we explore how one interview from Izzy pushed Alex Pereira into God mode.